Hello, good morning. Thanks for joining me. Today's topic: building a racing motorcycle, specifically a Velocette in the 1960s and 70s. Now, that's a broad range, but in those days, you just built with what you got, what you found. I built two almost identical racing Velocettes in the late 60s, and we took them round the race circuits of northeast England and lower parts of Scotland. So many happy memories, formative years of building motorcycles, tuning them, sourcing parts, all a challenge. The two Velocettes were a 350 Velocette Viper and a 500 Velocette Venom, both based on road-going Velocette motorcycles. The Velocette Viper was my brother's, the late Barry. Now, this is coming from a family where Velocette name meant everything. My mother, God bless her soul, used to say Velocettes were safe, and she went as far as to say that when I passed my motorcycle test at 16, the only large capacity machine I was allowed to have, and I did listen to her, because she listened to your mum and dad in those days. My mother would say Velocettes were safe and the rest of the Marks, BSAs, the Nortons, the Triumphs weren't safe. So it was natural for me to get a 500 Velocette. My motorcycling foray came in a bucket and a number of boxes, minus parts, of course. On one motorcycle transaction, we went up north to one of the mining villages, and my dad purchased a 1937 KSS, and this he restored to immaculate condition, and it was bought to take around shows by a subsequent buyer. So Velocettes were in the family. Other velos we had? Yes, we had multiple motorcycles. Our backyard in North Ormsby, Bargate Street, our backyard was forever holding cherished vehicles. Other Velocettes we owned at the time of my building racers. Other velos include a 350 MAC Velocette, commonly called a Mac. There was a 500 KSS, again all single cylinder long strokes, and there was even a sidecar outfit with the 350 Mac. Not the best chosen workhorse, but it worked. So we would all go to the local race circuit Croft on our velos. Dad riding the combo, the sidecar outfit, Mum in the sidecar, loving it. My brother on his 350 Viper, and me on my 500 Venom. Wow. What would that be like today if we could assemble that crowd of people and machines? Getting back to building Velocettes for racing. We didn't know whether the Velocette was going to be raceable, competitive, but that didn't seem to stand in our way. The two velos, the Viper and the Venom, ended up identical. The cherry on the cake was alloy tanks with a strap to hold them down. These would set off the bikes, and there would be coach painted with the Velocette logo insignia by my dad, who was an amazing coach painter. When he painted Velocette or Norton, it looked like a transfer, but was obviously far better. Just an aside, I have seen him use some of my mother's hair to make a brush for painting, sign writing. Yep. I guess I'll leave that to your imagination. Back to the bikes. Starting at the front. Racing wheels weren't an option, too expensive. Racing tyres were a must, and in those days we called them triangulars. So that would be, if we could source them, tyres. Front brake, it was just a single leading shoe. I had a few attempts at making a twin leading shoe, but you don't mess about with any attempts when you're braking. So I can't remember whether it ever got off the drawing board. I worked as an apprentice fitter at Smith Docks at South Bank from 1966 to 70. So it was during this period I built these motorcycles. Back to the bikes. Front brakes, single leading shoe, drilled gauze for coolant, and a big air scoop pop riveted on. That was our attempt at a racing front brake. Obviously the cables for that were sorted. Lovely alloy levers, ball ended, essential and mandatory for racing. Moving to the forks. Velocette handling is amazing. We stripped the forks, checked all the parts, threw away any dust covers that weren't needed, built them back up and fitted taper roller head bearings. The difference between ball bearings and taper roller bearings is light, a difference between light and day and dark, or chalk and cheese. Beautiful taper roller head bearings. Bottom yoke, pretty standard, except we may well have altered the lock stops so the angle of left and right was restricted for racing. Handlebars, the standard bars were binned, the top yokes were ground down so that they looked more racy, and new handlebars of the clip-on variety. Now, I was mad keen on Jarno Saarinen racing style, and his clip-ons were very, very steep. In fact, my dad would say, you might as well just put your hands on the wheel spindle. That's how low they were looking. So I would have steep handlebars on my Venom, and the Viper would have slightly shallower angles for my conservative brother Barry, 3 years older than me, but not an apprentice at Smith Docks, and not able to create or want to create a masterpiece for racing. Speedo in the bin, rev counter mounted centrally on the top yoke. Moving backwards, the lovely alloy tank. Moving backwards even further, a custom made aluminium racing seat with a hump on. I love aluminium, I love building, so red leather, and the seat was made. Moving down below the tank, obviously the engine, the Velocette engine. Are you ready for some facts straight off the top of my head? No research, it's just stuck with me all these years. Here we are, 2023, and I'm talking about 1970, 71. So, fair few years. 72-86 was the bore and stroke of a Velocette Viper. 86-86 was the bore and stroke of a Velocette Venom. Much squarer in bore and stroke. The Viper would rev to 7,200 RPM and the Venom 6,800. So very similar. The road going speed of the Venom was approximately 105 mile an hour and the Viper slightly slower, and the MAC round about 70. So inside the Venom, which when it came in a bucket and boxes needed a lot of parts to complete, one of the parts was a piston. I saw the opportunity to source an ASO, ASSO Italian racing piston. A thing of beauty. That was fitted to the Venom. The rest of the engine was very standard. We did try a close ratio gearbox. That was quite a traumatic experience, a hit and miss. Gear ratios, I can't remember, but we did gear the Venom to do 122 down Railway Straight at Croft. Was 122 fast enough? Apparently not. When Mick Grant came past me on his Jim Lee Velo, I thought I'd stopped, and when he came past me on his Yamsel, I nearly got off and pushed. It was that fast compared to me. But we had racing velos, so that's what we would pursue. Chain guards, mandatory for racing, were made lightened. Heavy back mud guards binned, light back guards formulated. Were we proud of the finished products? Too true. Both fellows looked the biz. They had to be bump started, and in those days, very early 70s, cameras, especially video, were a bit more exclusive and we didn't have access to them. Oh, what I would have give for an Insta360 Go 3 or a smartphone, but you don't know what you've got. You don't know what you're missing. So, a 350 Viper, 500 Venom, all set for racing. Not to be. I couldn't afford to go racing after building the bikes. So I sold my Venom to a friend of my brother's, and this friend would go racing with my brother in our van, of which we had acquired a sliding door Bedford. It changed our life. I was on a provisional car licence, but I chose to drive it all over the northeast of England. I loved driving. So 2 bikes, all the spares, Mum and Dad accompanying us, and off we went racing. I did get a run out on the 350 Viper. My brother entered me for a race as a thank you for spannering for him. I enjoyed it. I didn't break any records. I suppose I can say I've done it. And my mother took an amazing shot of me coming in the pits after a practice session. Just before the photo, I'd sat up and showing off with no hands on the bars. I'd put my goggles up onto my helmet. So the photo that my mother took shows me with goggles on my helmet. But now you know the backstory. Yes, it was exciting. I guess practice was more exciting than the race because you don't know who you're up against. And I remember having a great tussle with a 700 Enfield, so I felt quite proud that I'd held him at bay through the corners and twisty bits. Building velos for racing. What did we get out of it? Family time. Would I do it again? Definitely. Would I like a bigger budget? What do bears do in the woods even today? Yep. So that was building velos for racing in the late 60s and early 70s. Thanks for joining me. Join me again soon.